Bad wine. You can love a dying Indian, but when he drinks bad wine and breaks your best glass, you give him to the wind.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Poets in Montana. You've just heard Vic Charlo read Bad Wine for us. Welcome today, Vic and his daughter April Charlo, who've been working together for quite some time now.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I saw your guys' act together, live, was when you came down to Franklin School.
Oh, yeah.
For a bunch of students that I had, and did your poetry, and April did the Salish language thing. This is, you have to connect the dots here because I don't narrate very well. But so how long have you guys been doing this?
So I moved home from Oklahoma. I was living in Oklahoma, and I got a call to come home, recruited to come home and work with the Salish language and get paid to learn my language, which I had a huge passion for, still have. And so when I came home and did that at the same time, Dad's publisher asked him if he would do a poem in Salish. Mm-hmm. So then Dad was like, hey, you're the Salish expert. Right. Let's how can we do this? So I remember sitting on his couch and talking about it. In 2007 is when I moved home. So right. 2007, and then we kind of talked about it, and he's like, well, I got an idea. And he said, how about if there's phrases that I know, and he's like, I wonder if that would work to put in there and to create a poem. And I was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And so there's a few phrases in Poet Laureate that we did have to translate. But once it was all put together, that's how Poet Laureate was born.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Very cool. And then eventually you got around to just translating complete poems.
Well,
trying to.
Well,
right?
So the thing is I, at that point, my fluency wasn't enough to be able to translate poetry.
Right.
And poetry in itself, and so English, what I found was that English doesn't have the same concepts that Salish has. Salish doesn't have the same concepts that English has. And so when you, and this was when I did not know this. Mm-hmm. And so telling Dad, yeah, sure, put your poetry all together, and we'll have Sophie Mays was my mentor, and we'll see, we'll ask her to translate it. Right. And so you give her, the line, I think it's prickly pear on the edge of my life or something, and she's like, what is this? She's like, how do you translate? And I was like, I don't know, Soupy, I'm sorry, I don't know, do the best you can. And so she was the one who translated it all. Yeah. And then the program I was working with was to create a teacher training program. Right. So I was to be taught to be a teacher. Then I was like, well, if I'm going to be a teacher, then I can teach my dad to, Poet Laureate, and then he can go on the road because he's the poet. I'm not a poet. I don't get on stage and read poetry. Right. And so I was like, Dad, I'll teach you the poetry when the time comes. So the book comes out, and I'm all, ideating, how we're going to do this, and I'll try it this way. And I get there, and I was like, okay, Dad, I will teach you Poet Laureate. And he goes, oh, well, I had another idea. And I was like, well, what was your idea? He said, I'm just going to have you read it. And I was like, me read it? I was like, but I'm not a poet. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. And that's how
the team was born.
The team was born,
well,
and we went on the
Why
road.
don't we have a team team action here?
Sure.
How do you guys do it? When you do
She reads a poem, and then I read the translation.
Yep, so I'll read the Salish. And so what's cool about this, about Poet Laureate, and I guess we'll talk about Poet Laureate after we read it. So, Poet Laureate. Stemos buus, stemplus semit me, skalkalich, spkni, kakusam, kaesh at chanels, kaul sinquen, si quelam isha ka kasawana, kas quelam, shetlu kas shitusam, isha ka en kunkunam, yet quelam she kan pials, Chest Poet Shape.
That is all. What's in your heart? What's the news? Indian people, sun, moon, stars, watch over us. We are the chosen people. We are the chosen people. We hear our ancient songs. This is our guide. We sing these songs and we are happy. Good enough.
Nice. Do you want to do another one? Just kind of follow that up and do another one like that together?
Yeah, we can do that. And then we can circle back around to Poet Shape because I wanted to talk about some of these words and the translations.
Right.
Because, our language is just so beautiful. Which one did you land on?
I can't find it.
We're just gonna go until because at the poetry reading I had them down.
Yeah.
27.
27.
And so these ones were tough. These ones had words that I had to. So the pronunciation, being on film, I always get really insecure. So I'm like, don't come for me. Don't come for me in my pronunciations on this. Okay. So, tinam tausam slus sleep. Schuimt si ket in twetkus. Spkni si spaak sil halt. Asal milk noops. Si es sheet. Sich nis kot. U tinam tausi. Schuimt sleep. Spkni yapanu nech tihulam. Tinam tausam sleep to milk noops. Tinam tausam sleep to milk noops.
Waiting for the hunt. Ice on Flathead River, moon full and light of day. 2 eagles on Eagle Tree across the water waiting. Ice breaks in small chunks, moon and unusual look for sure. Eagles waiting for the hunt. Eagles waiting for the hunt.
Yeah, and that phrase moon, an unusual look for sure. Where and then how she translated it was, the moon is really changing. It's really that estichulam is to change something. You could change your clothes. When the trees change color, tichulam, and so so she had to get creative on the translation. And in Poet Shape, so it's interesting how Skali, and the translation is Indian people. Mm-hmm. What's amazing about our language is Skali actually translates the root words are flesh. Skelt is the word for flesh, for meat, type thing, and then lich is land. So Creator gave us the word to call ourselves. Skalich is basically flesh of the earth. And so, and we put Indian people, and this was before all of these huge realizations and came to be around the language. And so, how different would it be to be the translation being, flesh of people, the flesh of the earth people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just a total different mindset.
Totally different.
So the language is totally different because of the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, because the concepts that are in the Skalich Nuwausht and the language, the people's language.
Right.
To English, there's just concepts that just don't translate.
Right.
And I didn't know that at all.
And I didn't know that at all either.
Yeah.
So this, and it's really cool to look at this and be that's really.
I discovered that realization because my son did a similar thing with my poems. He was studying French, right? And so he thought for a thesis project to get his degree or whatever, he decided, well, can I translate your poetry into French? I'm like, have at it. That'd be great, right? And but then we discovered all of these issues, and that's just going from one European-based language to
Right.
another
Right.
kind of.
Right.
I mean, the idea of the leap that this makes is, because I came into so many of those realizations with going from French to English. There's certain things you just can't translate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
this is a whole different world.
Whole different world where there just are not concepts,
Yeah,
like
right.
yeah,
right.
ownership for one, like there is no concept
Totally.
of ownership in our languages.
Right, and the sense
Yeah.
of self, that that I-ness. There's so much
Right.
I-ness in our
Right.
poetry, as
Right.
opposed to the concept of
Yeah,
all
collaborative.
oneness, kind
yeah.
of a.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, what else?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about these poems when we went to Wolf Trap. Wolf Trap is a small, very small park, national park, just like Glacier Park. As a matter of fact, both of those parks, those were the reasons why we went. Well, we were asked to go to this place and learn about it, and so we went, and boy, it was really something. Wolf Trap is just a really small place. It's really, and probably the stadium, beautiful stadium, open air, and 2,000 people, and we got to read, and we read these poems,
Yeah.
and it was
Where is Wolf Trap located?
Virginia.
Exactly? In Virginia.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, just
just outside
Outside
of
DC.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that was one of our biggest successes that we've had with
Yeah.
the
The biggest.
April and Vic show. that we-
Roadshow, yeah.
Road
Well, see,
show.
the
Playing
thing
to a
is-
sold-out audience.
Yeah, we went all
Well,
the way.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We should take this on the road. I mean, we never did take it on
Yeah.
the road.
Right.
I mean, there's 7 reservations. We could at least do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then I'm sure that there was other people would hear in the Dakotas would hear about us, and then we could get more readings. I'd like to really work on that. I don't know
It'd
if
be
it,
fun.
yeah, might be my last,
The last big tour, the big last hurrah.
the last hurrah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really nice to be able to come back and be at the library and do because we haven't done a reading since before my son was born, and he's coming up on 8 years old.
Right.
So yeah, so this is really nice to be back in the.
Yeah, I don't remember what year that we did the thing in the school, but that must have been at least 10 years ago. 10, 12,
10,
15
yeah.
maybe,
I feel like I was still working for the program that I came back to work for, and so it had to have been 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when, and I think well, no, I think it was actually coming on later than that, maybe 12.
Okay.
Because I know I had all of a sudden had started to have these, well, it wasn't like I had them. I had conversations with other language colleagues, and after doing this camp, where I had, and I was learning the Kootenai language, and I had learned it enough to say this sentence, and I said a sentence to an elder, and she said, "Well, you can't say that." And what I had said was, in Kootenais, I said, "Hand me my water," and she said, "Well, you can't say that." And I was like, "I know I said all those words right. I know I said it grammatically correct."
Right.
And she said, "Yeah." She said, "You said it correctly, but you can't say, put that word my with anything in the natural world. You can't say my water."
Right.
And I was like, "So we can't say my rock," because this was the language method that I was using. And she said, "No, you can't say my rock. You can't say my tree. You can't say." And I was like, "What?" And that's when my brain just exploded around it.
Right.
And then it evolved to realizing, and I remember that being the conversation at this school. and
Exactly.
talking to
I do
these-
too. Now that you're telling the story, I do remember that exactly.
And I remember,
yeah.
and so
Which
like
is
here I am, this like woke, like colonized Indian, talking to these Franklin students of like,
With the realization.
yeah,
going
you
on.
can't say my TV. Don't even try saying my toy. Or, like, it's all wrong. Like, get it together, you fourth graders. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and so it had to have been 2012, 2013, something like that.
Well, it didn't come across that way.
Good.
No, it came across as education for a culture
Sure,
that didn't know what
I'm
the hell was going
exaggerating.
on with another
Yeah,
culture.
right,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it really did a good job. I
Good.
thought.
Yeah. No, I'm exaggerating for comedy's sake. I didn't
Exactly.
yell at kids.
Well, Carolyn wants us to do a couple of readings too now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
the
Did you
Collaborative.
have a chance
Yes.
to talk to her?
I will circle back around. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, what else? We were talking about the Churchill poems. I don't know where you want to go next. I'll follow your lead
Yeah.
if you have a plan. I mean, that thing you guys did at the museum together
Yeah.
with Deborah was great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead and.
gonna choose a poem?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll just read another poem.
Yeah.
How about Generations of Need? For my son, Martin Antoine Victor Paul Charlo. I haven't read this for a long time. Generations find focus in my little boy's face when thoughts of old times and old folks creep into the need to delve deep into who we are. He is the little chief without saying. I read Worry of Moise, who states that we have too much schooling, and now we think more than we should. He said that people used to send a young boy to the top of the Red Mountain for the good of all of our people, and we were well. I followed the Smith stream as I try to freeze the focus on unfamiliar feelings, except that we do belong to mountains, and my boy is the face of all of our grandfathers, who hold both of us true to cottonwood and stone.
I love that poem. And that poem, just listening to you read that poem, then in my mind it takes me back to previous times. It takes me back to other iterations of your life. You know, I mean, since we haven't really said anything about where you came from, if some of these people don't know who you are, you are the
I'm the
well,
chief.
you tell me what you are.
I'm the chief of the
Yeah.
Bitterroot Salish. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about that at all. But people know, well, the people who really know me know that I'm the chief.
Because you are a direct descendant.
I am the
of
direct
Victor
descendant of Chief Charlo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I am.
Yeah, and I not first encountered you, but I remembered since I had moved up and was teaching up there on the Flathead Reservation, was being able to hang out a little bit more with you. But you were over at Job Corps, working at Job Corps, and before those years as a counselor at Job Corps, you were at Two Eagle. You started at Two
Yeah.
Eagle, right?
Yeah.
Two Eagle River School.
I finally became the principal. I was the principal at Two Eagle River School, and it was really fun. It was really a ride.
Yeah, school tends to be. As a principal, that's the worst spot to be in, right? Because everybody's coming after you if you're
Yeah.
a principal.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, don't get me on my soapbox of education. So what was interesting is I decided to become a principal before I had even touched foot in a public school, because we were homeschooled. I was homeschooled till I was 12, and because my dad was a principal, I was going to become a principal. And so that's why I have my master's in education leadership. So
All
it's
right.
because before I even stepped in, yeah. But that's a whole nother interview on how I
Yes.
feel about
Well,
public
there's-
education.
There's plenty of things to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I don't know. So the Martin Antoine Victor Paul.
Mhm.
So Dad had 3 girls. He had Mary, who he named after his mom. Claire, who he named after Clara
Clara Plant,
who is your aunt,
who's my aunt.
who is her aunt, and then and he's trying for a boy. He's trying for a boy, right? And so so he has Mary, he has Claire, and then April, and then my mom got to name me the 3rd girl, and so I got on my white side, because my mom's white, and so I got April, Iris, Jean Ann, I got named after every aunt and every grandma.
It's my turn.
Yeah, so I got, and then finally, you know, and so they're probably like, let's try one more time for a boy. And then they had Martin. And so Martin has all the chiefs' names. So he has Martin, who is Chief Martin, Antoine, who is Dad's dad, Victor, who is Chief Victor, who was the chief before Charlo, who signed the treaty in the Bitterroot. Yeah, so Martin, Antoine, Victor, Paul. Paul was Grandpa's,
My uncle.
his uncle. Yeah, and so he was named after all the chiefs.
I tried to remember all the chiefs.
So that's how, and so yeah, so and so that really speaks to that poem too, is to say, you know, for my son Martin, Antoine, Victor, Paul, Charlo, and then Chief Charlo was the chief who signed the treaty. Chief Victor was the one who started the negotiations, and then Charlo took over. And another interesting thing to note is, you know, because it's always asked, it's like, oh, so the Bitterroot Salish were hereditary chiefs. We weren't. We weren't hereditary chiefs. The only reason that happened is the people would, it was the people who would recognize the chief. And so, you know, what ended up happening was this line of men, they would have children, and apparently they would be raised right with the same qualities of their parent, of their father, and the people just really, that's who they chose. They'd say, yes, this guy, yes, we will accept this guy. The next son, yes, we will accept this guy. At any given time, it could have shifted to anybody else.
Yeah.
But because the Charlo line, and it's not even the right? Charlo's a French name.
Right.
And so yeah, Chief Charlo had an Indian name, but it's too long to even try to change our name to like Small Claw the Grizzly Bear. Like we would be writing for like running out of room on the checkbooks.
Let alone in Salish.
Right? We'd be like, April, Small Claw. Yeah. So that's how it came to be, and then of course when the government forced the tribes to adopt the colonial way of governing, then the chief, you know, in order to assimilate us, to strip us from our social structures, and leadership was one of those things. So then they made us adopt this tribal council, and then the chief still had a seat. But then slowly but surely they managed to like push out the voice of the chief, and so Dad currently is the hereditary chief of how that works. And like he said, the right people who know and who are traditional recognize Dad as chief and holds him in that right. And in that respect. But of course, you know, tribal council. Yeah, we also need a revamp on that. And so, you know, so technically, I hold the princess title.
Well, that's what this all came down
That's
to.
all. And so let's just really get to the main point of this whole interview. I am a princess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's good. That's great information.
Yeah, and then I went so far as to name my son Chief. Yeah, Chief, and then, you know, so I just bypassed all the chiefs' names and just went right to Chief. So yeah, Chief Lachal Pulach Victor 3 Eagles is his name.
Cool.
Yeah.
You have another one you want to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about Agnes van der Berg, who is pretty major in my poems. And excuse me.
I didn't think about water.
You got a little.
I mean, I have the big. You want a big drink of my jug of water?
No, I'm good. I think I'm all right.
Okay.
And Agnes was one of my teachers. She would always say, I forget what she'd say. Well, let me read the poem.
Yeah, there you go.
We hide 10 here at Agency Creek and at Valley Creek. Hard work, let your mind go as you wait for the rest of your life. Soft hide, so soft wind blows like cloth, hair white with hide. She, Agnes, watches and tells us in old in Salish tongue the word for scraper that I remember now, so hard, so to the point. So why did I learn how to write? Why did I want to? Is it worth the loss of your world going away? And see, that was one of the poems that I really thought about a lot. You know, why did I learn to do all these things? You know, why did I learn? And see, the thing is, I had another friend of mine, Johnny Arlee. Johnny and I weren't the same age, but we were doing a lot of things together. And one of the things that Johnny thought he was going to do, see, one of the things I did is I entered the seminary. I went to a Catholic seminary, a Jesuit Catholic seminary. And Johnny was going to follow me. He said he was headed that same direction. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be something? But at the same time, what would we lose? See, all his knowledge that he knows, all the Salish that he knows, and he's forgetting now. I mean, it's just amazing. And I'm hoping that we can just keep going. And see, because he's still working. He's still on the job. Broken neck, broken arm, whatever, he's still at it. As old as he is and as old as I am. God, I'm 85 now. Yeah, I think about that. Almost 90. Holy moly. I can't, you know, I mean, I had never thought in my life I'd ever make it this far, first of all. Never thought. And see, I've had sicknesses that should have killed me. I had polio, which should have done me in, because finally my folks said, well, the doctor said you might as well just take him home. And that meant take him home to die. And so what happened was, when they were taking me home, Mom said, I can't do that. I can't take my son home to die. So she thought about a medicine man. And it was Jerome Vandenberg, or Jerome, no, it was Jerome, wasn't Vandenberg. And he doctored me. I don't know how many times. And and see, the thing is, my mom told me the story, and so it's really, I'm not really sure. And one day, they saw me crawling. And wow, next thing you knew, I was walking again. See, apparently I had been walking already. And when I got polio, I couldn't walk anymore. And so I started walking again. And apparently I pulled through that one. But before that, apparently I had almost died when I was a baby. So there were times when I shouldn't even be here. And here I am, writing poetry, doing crazy things.
Life is a strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And so that's part of my story.
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
And Agnes is really a big part of my growing up.
One of the things that I love about your poetry is there's just such of a softness to it, you know. I mean, I know that there are a few in there where you get your dander up once in a while, but for the most part, there's a real softness to it. There's a real, and it is kind of it's a natural sort of awakening, but it's through sort of a human voice and entity, and that's kind of what you do on the page, or do for me anyway.
Yeah. You know, my mom, You know, well, let me say this. I tried to write a poem about all of my family. And there's one that I didn't write about yet. And that's my daughter, Claire. And she knows that. She said, you know, you've never written a poem about me. And for 100 years, I would start one. The one would get started. And I know what I want to write, but somehow it's never made it on paper. So, but I wrote one for my mom, and she liked to smoke. She was a smoker. And so this is what she talked about. It's called Smoke. Mom liked her smoke. She would say, I get hungry for a cigarette. There are secrets to the bone. When I was in the first grade, I couldn't go to school because I had the itch. Mrs. Hunton, my teacher, sent me home. Some shunned me, others ran. I would go home with no homework, alone. Mom would take a break in the afternoon. She would get out her smokes, light up to true confessions. On a fall day like today, warm but not too warm, sun shining through the smoke whirling above her in lovely wisps, layers, always moving. There was nothing wrong with smoking. After the war, everybody smoked. It was a thing to do. Even I smoked, but it wasn't the same as Mom smoking the smoke she hungered for.
Smoke, and smoke is a big part of your cultural traditions.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's a big car, you know, like we use, it's part of the ceremony, part of our ceremony.
Right. And I think that probably happens across a whole lot of cultures because, I mean, there's just something about smoke. I love smoke, too. I don't know why. Even though he didn't like me, I had to quit smoking.
Yeah, me too.
Well, same here. I still have to carry them around.
Yeah.
I still have to have them in their Pall Malls that we use.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to read one for my daughter, Mary. This is called Journey for Mary Charlo. To come this far would be worth a song in any other time. Ride just past to open country, country of my grandfathers, of victor's dust. This car makes this journey small. Think of grandmothers, of great-grandfathers, of my children who count boulders big as bison to headwaters, Three Forks, on horse or on foot, with dogs carrying days for buffalo, sacred buffalo jump long ago. Think of teepee like old gray smoke in trees. So sing this time when time is ripe to break camp, to sing this plain to thunder again.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't do that one very much anymore either. This is one I wrote for my kids when they were just babies. They were all babies. And we were at Agnes's camp. And we were in the teepee. And they were sleeping. And I wrote this poem, Summer at Agnes's. Teepee light brings bugs to bump the sides of the teepee as I wish bird song into my baby's dreams this warm June day as I babysit and listen to the hum of summer.
Nice.
Yeah. Let me read one I wrote for Dick Hugo. And it's a letter poem. He liked letter poems.
Yeah.
And so I wrote him a letter poem. Letter to Hugo from Dixon. Dear Dick, I was happy when you came to class this summer because I think of you now and borrow time from another time. To tell you my truth warps my tongue, yet I can't tell you the truth because I never did tell you the truth. I could have asked you, friend, how you write this way as I drank your gin and orange juice those dull, dark, lonesome days. I certainly wasn't you certainly wasn't your student, but I was, drunk Indian. Another friend showed you poetry I had written in the seminary, stuff I wasn't proud of. But this girl made me feel chaste. We met. He said it wasn't good. Awful comes to my mind now. Yet I had something. Was that the word in one of the poems about my brother on Iwo Jima? He said you didn't like old ladies who would never write good poetry. I was your Indian poet those times, yet the only good line that made you laugh hard was Garfield's ghost swims the Skalkaho, and that poem soured fast after that sweet beginning. After we went to Eastern Oregon College, you said that people, who were their names, who ran the Mad Virgin Press, would probably print it. Yes, I said, but I remained virgin. As evening grew longer, we would change to whiskey and something like 7-Up. I mixed my drinks at the end. I remember leaning on the booze, pouring long from a half-gallon jug, and then a splash of pop. I was the sneaky Indian. On good nights, we would have those readings off the wall in the beautiful Eddy Avenue house across Bizad, Rocky, Logan, Kaiser, Stafford. Good jazz that would make your heart sing. We didn't know Welsh yet. I see his name in gold on my desk now, and his reading was fine this summer. Bassett is here in Dixon, helping me remember these times. Poetry from bad nights, good drinks, and Dick, you are hot. I wait to visit you very soon. Love, Vic. So that was Dick's poem.
Yeah, that's great. That's full of a lot of stuff. You want to start unpacking that letter.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in that letter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember visiting with you because you talked to me about these kinds of stories with Dick and drinking stories and sneaky Indian or whatever stories. And I remember you telling me about the time you took Dick to see the graves at Jocko.
Yeah.
And he wrote that poem, and that you felt somewhat robbed by that experience.
Yeah, I did at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a great poem.
Oh, he definitely had a style, and it's hard to deny a Hugo poem. They work like great poems.
Yeah. I'd like to read one about for my brother, the one that on Iwo Jima. Turning the calendar, night of July 31st, for Private First Class Louis C. Charlo, United States Marine Corps Reserve, August 1945. We, America, dropped a bomb 34 years ago, 6 months too late for my brother, who died in March on Iwo Jima fighting Japs. I don't feel good about any of this as I sit in retrospect this warm, near August night and think about my brother, Charles, with love, and remember Fred Levasseur, old French lumberjack who helped cut all the trees down in Evro, telling us about the atom bomb, as he called it, and told us that the bomb was only as big as a pea, yet we knew in our young minds the brutal force in Fred's little one-room cabin. 1944. It was August, horse haying time. We played in the hot sun and old red sawdust when Chuck whistled his whistle, and there he was in marine green on Sweat House Trail by the creek. Mom screaming her delight and all drinking the night. Happy that instant. February came with wailing on dark road, and I conclude this night that Fred's bum ignited light years too soon for all of us.
Too soon for all of us.
Yeah.
Do you want to, I noticed, this, one of the things I discovered you guys did the art museum reading was that you've got a new book of poems that I didn't even know about, the Dirty Corner poems.
Uh-huh.
A lot of these are in there, I know, but is there anything in there that you want to
Yeah,
share
I want
with
to.
us?
Yeah, I want to read April's poem,
There you go.
if I can find it.
Well, you know, the one thing that Claire can hold dear is that you have tried to write more poems to her than any of your others.
Yeah. It's in the 30s, I think.
And then while he's looking for that, I was going to say something about the Agnes poem, and it made me, you know, the part where he said, you know, why did I learn how to write? Why did I want to? Is it worth the loss of your world going away? And it was interesting because I've hearing him read this poem over and over again, and having had to be brought in, like, he's 85 years old. That means the language stopped with him 85 years ago.
Right.
And that is a tragedy in itself, and so when I started doing the language revitalization, you know, there was this kind of this frustration with my grandparents, you know, with his dad and his mom, you know, where it was, you know, why didn't they teach him the language?
Right.
And I had to, you know, sit with the curiosity with that and hold space with it. And then conversations that I had with other elders like Frances Vanderburg, Pulasoa, where she said, you know, April, the times were just changing. You had to adapt or die.
Right.
You know, things were evolving so quickly. And so, and to understand that my grandparents didn't teach their kids because they thought it was the best thing they could ever do. Like they did it with love.
Right.
They didn't teach the language to them so that they could have a better life.
Right.
And the tragedy of that.
Oh, I know. And, you know, and a similar thing, I have exact similar thing in my family. My grandparents came in 1617 to this country from Ireland. They were Gaelic speakers.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They had their children.
Yeah.
No. And I know other kids that came from Italy and other places, other immigrants, places that people came from. The language? No, can't speak that. You got to be American here.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't want to shackle them with our horrific past, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Well, see, Mom knew Cree.
Right.
She knew Cree.
Right.
I mean, she knew Cree upside down. I mean, she'd speak Cree to. There are fewer people that she could speak to, but whenever she'd find a Cree person, boy, they'd really get down and really talk.
Yeah.
So let me read, it's called Hot Springs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm headed to Hot Springs to read poetry. April is long for the ride. What she really needs is 2 new tires, $135, because she's going to California. You know how it goes. She has 2 good tires. Now the other 2 are no good. So I say, maybe something will happen. April wasn't buying it. She didn't believe in magic or the spirits. I was taking her on a beautiful, optimistic trip. When we got there, and before I read, April set out what I was to sell. My broadside poem for $85, classy. A just married couple had stayed for my reading. The groom had already put the wedding gifts in the car. When I got around to reading the poem on the poster, I said, April, the poster. She said, the poster's right here where I set them. No posters. She herself had put them out. There was a big dramatic moment. Yet where could they be? Then the groom exclaimed, maybe I put them in the car with the gifts. Long pause as he goes out and checks. He comes back with the posters. Good job, I say. After reading the poem, I talk to the groom. He wants to buy one. He hands me $100 bill. Let me get change. He says, no, keep the 100. April is talking to a small crowd when I tell her we have 100 for tires. They began passing the hat, which netted another 35. It was a happy ride home. April had her tires for the T-Bird, and we made some magic that night.
That's right. Made some magic. Yeah.
That was so good. Oh, we just had the best life. Dad, when these poetry readings and things like that, my dad has the best sense of humor and with little kids, and I find myself, where I do that with little kids where, he would just tell us stories and jokes, and he would just elaborate on them and just have all of us kids laughing. And oh my goodness, if he put a cuss word in there, oh my, we would just
Fall off your
fall
chair.
off our chairs like laughing. And so Dad, his sense of humor, and so I love that, that you're able to see his sense of humor in this poem, because this was such a funny, but we just laughed and we're laughing and all the way home. And this was back when, I had 2 cents to my name, but I was, I had to get off res to save my life and stop
Right.
my drinking and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and Dad, and were you still working then? Yeah, you were. You had the stroke after I went to California.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was, he's like, we're going to make this money happen. We're going to get those tires. And maybe at this poetry, and I was like, in Hot Springs. In Hot Springs, Dad. Okay, here we go.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
What year did the stroke come? Do you remember? Because I think you guys had
2001.
Yeah, it was because
Okay.
9/11. It was crazy.
Yeah, it happened 9/11.
Yep.
That I was in the hospital at 9/11.
Wow.
Yep. So we were
Yeah.
sitting around in his room watching 9/11.
Oh, 22 years ago.
Yeah.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, God, I never thought I'd last this long.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my insurance, right? I took my insurance out, and I thought, well, God, I'm not going to last more than 15 years. And that
His
was
retirement.
the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take 15 years. It was 15 years or life. I could have done it for life. I said, I'll just take it for 15 years because I'm not going to make it for 15 years. 6 years later, I'm broke. I'm not getting that $500 anymore.
Yeah.
So, but still making it.
What else can you do but laugh, right? I mean, that's life,
Exactly.
you know?
And still making it. That's the thing. Somehow there's,
There's magic.
we're not rich, but somehow today we're getting $2,000.
Oh, it is today.
All right.
Yeah, from COVID, the tribe is dispersing $2,000.
All right,
So yeah, we're
good.
making magic happen on a Friday afternoon
Take it where you can get
in
it.
Missoula. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well,
So-
is there anything else that you want to do or say? Anything regarding the?
Well, I'm good. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Well, how about this one?
Oh, yeah.
I just opened this up, and it's Magnum Silentium. And that means when I was in the seminary, see, this is when I was in the seminary, there was this word called Magnum Silentium, and that means the big silence. And so there's a time when you go to bed, well, there's a time when there's Magnum Silentium. The great silence. That meant after a certain hour of night, there was silentium. Then at a certain hour, it would be Magnum Silentium. You see, we were a cloistered order, like the Trappist. We had made the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. This meant no talking, no talk.
No talk. That wasn't the big silence necessarily. Did it
That
equate to that too? I
that
mean, in
was
terms of,
that was the big silence.
yeah.
Yeah, that was, well, see, I never think about these things, like Magnum Silentium. what does that mean? You know, nobody knows what that means.
Latin,
And I thought,
I guess.
wow, I know what that means. Yeah, see this book, I really haven't read too much. I haven't really read out of it much at all.
Right.
I never did a reading. Well, as a matter of fact, my editor is no longer my editor. He's no longer, we've parted ways.
Okay.
Why? I have no idea.
Yeah, I understand that.
He got mad at me.
Isn't that life?
So we need a new editor.
It's like,
Yeah, I need a new editor. So out there, anybody who needs you
Let's
need
do the
somebody,
call,
a
right?
poet.
There it is.
do a little editor fishing.
I need an editor. You know, my last editor was pretty good, I thought, and for some reason. Oh, what I do want to talk about too is this. When the light of the world was subdued, our songs came through. And this is a book that I'm in. And it's edited by Joy Harjo, who is the first Native American Poet Laureate in the United States ever, the first one.
Right.
And I got to get a poem in this book,
All right.
if I can find it. Oh, it's right here.
Oh, good.
It's called Frog Creek Circle. Oh, let me do a little bit more on this one. Well, the other thing that's happening is that they've got a building here on campus at the university, and they're building it right now. And what's happening is that they're going to be putting all the Native American stuff there. It's pretty amazing, because when I was first starting at the university, there was a guy I was taking a class from, and he said, well, he asked me if I wanted to take a tour through the place, and I said, yeah. So we went through it, and he showed me a few things. Well, he showed me the whole thing, and I'm not going to remember his name. And he said, one of these days, we're going to have a place for all of this. And now they are going to have a place, because we had a big together and a fundraiser that I was at, and I got to read this poem, and it's going to be.
Is it going to be down by the field house down there, kind of?
Yeah.
Because I drove by there and I
Yeah.
just saw that. Yeah, it's like a new museum or whatever they're
Yeah,
building.
there's
Yes.
part of it's going to be a museum,
Yes.
and part of it, and I can't remember the name of it.
Well, I
what
can't
the name
either
of
off the
it
top of
is.
my head.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what it. And I'm going to have this poem.
All right.
It's going to be in that building. Cork Claremont is doing the glass, and they're going to put this poem in stained glass
Oh, nice.
in the front of the building. And let me read the poem.
Yeah.
It's called Frog Creek Circle. Mountain so close, we're relative, quick so cold it brings winter rain. We return to warm August home, Frog Creek, where I've lived so long that smells are open only here. This land never changes, always whole, always the way we want it to be. We always come back to check our senses or to remember dreams. We are remembered today in circles of family, of red pine, of old-time chiefs, of forgotten horses that thunder dark stars. These are our songs that we come to this day, soft as Indian mint, strange as the sky.
That's beautiful, man. That's a perfect poem for the entryway to that building.
Yeah. So that's it.
All right. Well, I tell you, this has been a delight, and I know it's time for us to wrap this up. We'll have to do another 4 or 5 hours sometime else. After you get back off tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta check our calendars and yes.
Anyway, Victor and April Charlo, thank you for being with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
It's been a long time.
Join us again next time for another Poet in Montana. See you later.
A lifetime filled